Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be the day 2 update on the Smite Fissure Paladin. Just to give you an idea, I played day 1, got it, 300 corruption, and day 2, we're at 1,000 corruption, and we're face sinking Aberoth and killing him very easily in like 2 minutes. So yeah, we're doing absolutely amazing with this build. I just want to let you know, I did spend the last day playing a different build because I felt very happy with the Smite Fissure Paladin, so this is like only 2 days of work on Merchant's Guild, so don't feel like as though this actually took 3 days to do, because it did not. So let's talk about the build, shall we? The idea with this build is we're utilizing Smite. There is a sub-skill inside Smite called Fissure. Fissure is a damage over time puddle on the ground. Note that the Fissure tooltip is bugged currently. It does convert, and if you convert it, it does scale with lightning damage. It is currently bugged. Completely ignore the Fissure sub skill. Like, completely ignore this part. But pretty much, Fissure is a 200% added damage effectiveness spell that sits on the ground for 3 seconds, and we can trigger 1 max per second. Then, of course, we can grab nodes that allow us to have 3 of them per second. Then we can grab more damage utilizing Smite's tree, and then we can grab more damage on the Paladin tree, where we scale crit multi to scale our lightning damage over time. Then we can plop down an Abyssal Echoes to do even more damage with the increased damage taken, and of course the more damage from Abyssal Echoes. And then on top of that, we can also utilize Devotion. As you don't know, if you don't know, Devotion works for Smite sub skills like the Lightning Bolts, and in this case the Fissure. So we can stack a lot of mana and get a lot of flat damage. To give you an idea right now, my Scepter has like 60 flat on it currently, and then our mana is giving me, I think right now, like about 120 flat. So we're tripling our flat just by having Devotion on. Now, of course, this does mean you have to walk around and squawk like a chicken, when you cast Abyssal Echoes every so often. But thankfully, because of the way that we have set up our mana, we don't actually, gain mana that fast. So the moment that you actually go lose all your mana with Abyssal Echoes, you can actually, pretty much just sit around at low mana and be just fine. There is a fine balance that you have to have with the mana. You will have to fuck around with it for just a small amount of time. This is because, like, you want to have enough mana to be able to cast your Abyssal Echoes every 5 seconds, but you don't want so much mana that you have to spam cast it and it will remove like extra smite casts and stuff like that. So that's cool. Now, before we talk about the rest of the build, let's talk about, are there any mandatory uniques? No, there's not a single mandatory unique. The unique that you eventually want is, of course, Devotion, but everything else is optional. The only thing that you need to play this build is to be around level 40 after leveling with a hammer throw character, and then getting a staff with decent damage mods. Now, the damage mods you want when you swap into this character is going to be like around spell damage, damage over time, lightning damage, elemental damage. Those are the modifiers that affect our damage percentage wise. Then, of course, other things that we're looking for on here is like crit multi, because we want the more damage from lightning, right? We want lightning penetration, lightning shock, we want shock chance, we want lightning shred on the tree. Those are all the modifiers that affect our damage. Also, as well, we have mana stacking, which affects our damage. You do want to do a decent amount of it. A good amount that I found is 600 mana. Once after that, you start pushing farther. It gets like not worth all of the investment. Of course, you'd rather just build more percent damage, more crit multi. Now, let's talk about the uniques that I decided to use and why I'm using them. So the first unique that I'm using right now is an Aberoth's Command. Why are we using it? Well, it has AoE on it, and Smite's Fissure AoE isn't like the biggest, so getting AoE from the tree and from, of course, Aberoth's Command is pretty good. Eventually, you get area on your Atrophy Gloves, and of course, you get area on your Devotion if you ever get like more LP on it or something like that, right? And you can make your Smite Fissure actually hit in a much bigger screen, which would, improve your clear significantly. This build has decent clear, but it's not like amazing ass clear, if that makes sense. It's just good enough clear. Okay, cool. So we're using Aberos Command because it has a lot of dot damage. You can get 2 LP on it very easily, get that crit multi, eventually get that double prefix going. That's what you want. Then we're using Devotion. We're using Devotion, of course, because it's a mandatory unique for endgame eventually. It's not mandatory for most of the character's existence. Just use Runes of Ascendance until you hit a Devotion, then imprint both your Devotions on the tree, and you'll be good to go. Eventually, you can get a 2 LP one and slam it with like crit multi and mana and stuff like that. Very good stats to have on it, just like the one I have here. Cool. The other uniques that I'm using, I am using a Bulwark of the Last Abyss. I actually slammed this day one through a Nemesis and got block chance on it. The reason why we're using this, even though with the downside of consuming our HP every few seconds, the reason why we care about this is not only does it have percent armor, like a lot of percent armor, it also helps us cap out our block. Right now, I'm sitting at 99% block when I'm in town and stuff like that. This is because of Bulwark of the Last Abyss. Now, eventually, if you invest more into block, you can swap into the Majasa shield, or you can swap into a different kind of shield. But early on, nothing beats Bulwark of the Last Abyss, as not only does it give us the armor, it also gives us a lot more block than other shields give us. So that's why we're using Bulwark of the Last Abyss, even though it's technically kind of a downside, right? Cool. Now, other uniques I'm using a pair of double movement speed boots. Doesn't matter what kind of boots you use, as long as it's a pair of movement speed boots that have movement speed slammed on them. You want as much movement speed as possible with any build in Last Epoch, especially in the end game. Right now I'm sitting at 80% movement speed and it feels very comfy. Cool. Now, I'm using double Numbra. A lot of people were asking me, why am I using double Numbra? Well, it gave me access to the silver ring base because I want silver rings for movement speed. Cool. That's the first part. The second part why we're using Numbras is because they have global critical strike multiplier on them. Right now, we're currently trying to find ways to build as much crit multi as possible because it's very good for our damage. Right now, I'm sitting at a fat 150% more damage modifier for my lightning damage over time because of all the crit multi that I have. So we want as much crit multi as possible, and Numbras have them. Eventually, you can get 3 LP Numbras and get like 3 affixes on them, and it'll feel more comfy. But right now, I just went for 2 LP Numbras for LE dot and of course HP and stuff like that. And I believe that's it for all of the uniques on the build that I'm currently using. Now, for gearing in general, all you really want are just your generic tank stats. You want as much HP as possible. You want as much armor as possible. You want to cap your resistances. We have blind on hit, so we don't have to care about crits for the most part. We're also utilizing the Sentinel base that gives us reduced damage from crits, so we don't have to care about too much about that. And my gear isn't perfect. You can easily refine this and get better gear. But with all that being said, this has been Dread. We're going to go in game and talk about the build more in detail. If you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing on the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me and showing me that you want more content like this. Let's go in game now, shall we? Here we are in game with the character. Let's go over all the skills real quick. So we have Smite. Smite, mainly what you're going to want first is going Fissure, then grabbing the more damage from Fissure, getting the extra fissures per second, and of course getting Sacrifice. Sacrifice is one of your biggest damage upgrades, so it's definitely important to get it very quickly. Then eventually we convert into Lightning with Order of Lagan. Then we of course get the extra area and Epicenter. If you do get plus levels to Smite on your relic somehow, put the points into Atonement so that you're not sacrificing as much health when you're casting Smite, so you can be tankier. That is pretty much it. If you go Fire Smite, there's also the option to go Immolate as well if you have plus levels to Smite, if you go for the Fire version, if you want to do that. Now, of course, that's Smite. Let's talk about Healing Hands. Healing Hands is here to heal us. We have decent healing effectiveness, and I'm using it for traversal reasons. Healing Hands is a very good movement skill, and I love it to death, so I use it on every single build, but mainly we're using it for the healing over time to counteract the damage that we're taking constantly. It's very good healing damage over time. And of course, if I'm constantly spamming Smite with Healing Hands, with this node here, we get plenty of upfront healing as well as we're casting it from the Smite itself and from Healing Hands. We have that on top of all of the leech on the tree here, which means that we end up just being absurdly tanky in the end game, which feels great and wonderful. We're also grabbing, of course, the more damage against void enemies because that's every harbinger, and we take less void damage, and undead enemies, which is like, everything else pretty much. Now, Holy Aura, mainly just grabbing the crit multi here, grabbing the cast speed here, the lightning pens, and then just some percent damage. And then obviously as well, just Shelter the Storm for extra endurance to help us cap out our endurance and elemental resistance. Holy Aura is pretty simple. Then Abyssal Echoes. So Abyssal Echoes is a little bit more complicated. We're grabbing Time Compression and then grabbing Abyssal Dispersion. The reason why we're doing this is because I only have 11 mana regen per second, and I don't have enough mana regen to sustain a fully mana costed out Abyssal Echoes. We use Abyssal Echoes at the start of our play session to dump our mana. As you can see here, we squawk like a chicken, right? And then we walk around using our smites and stuff. As you can see, my mana regen is not that fast, so I can just cast Abyssal Echoes again. And I can also use the passive from Holy Aura to also zoom our mana, and that will make us feel like as though we're not constantly gaining mana, which feels really good in the monolith, of course, because remember, the reason why we want it, let's say, oh, Dread, do you really need all that damage from Devotion? No, you're not using it for the damage. You're actually using it for the 100% cast speed from Devotion, because without it, we don't actually have that fast of cast speed with our Smite. We're getting most of our cast speed for our Smite from our Devotion. The reason why being is because we don't need too much cast speed, because we can only trigger 3 smites per second, so we don't need an absolute butt ton of damage. So we actually go out of our way to not build that much cast speed on our gear so that, you know, we can afford more damage and make our fissures do more damage. So yeah, then we grab the 20% more damage against blinded enemies here. Very good. Then the 24% increased damage taken from enemies with Abyssal Decay on it. So these are just multiplicative modifiers. So it's like 44 or a little bit more than 44% more damage, which is amazing. Then Sigils of Hope here, it's mainly here for the increased damage from this. It's like 125% increased damage. Then also as well, it helps us cap out our block with Sign of the Guardian. That gives us like 15% block chance. I never actually press Sigils of Hope. You can if you want to. I'd rather just be block capped and not accidentally die because my block wasn't capped. So definitely something you know, you can do on your own time. I don't click Symbols of Hope. Do you guys click Symbols of Hope? I don't. But yeah, very strong. Now let's talk about the passive tree and the important parts from the passive tree. So most important part of the main passive tree is Time and Faith. This is how we're making it so that we don't suck up our mana with Fissure, because we immediately use 10 mana and lose 10 mana immediately, right? So that's important. So for the Void Knight tree, the main part that's important is getting Void Corruption to get a bunch of crit multi. Right now we're getting like, I think 25 crit multi from the Void Knight tree, thanks to Void Corruption, which is cool. We also get a lot of Leech, which allows us to leech and face tank enemies on top of all of our healing effectiveness. Because remember, we're not just relying on our healing. We want to have multiple sources of a sustain so that we get as tanky as possible, right? Of course, Dark Maw is very good while mapping as well. Then for Paladin, the most important slot is here, Judgment of the Storm, giving us more damage per crit multi. This is giving me 150% more damage right now. It is absurd. It is very strong. Other things that are important, getting all the block on the tree, right? Extra cast speed so I don't have to put it on my gear. Lightning Pen, more damage to electrify, very good. Just your generic stuff. Increased damage and mana. This helps a lot in terms of damage scaling. I'm grabbing Covenant of Light because it actually increases the block that I get from my sigils, so that of course I can get my block capped. Then also as well, I'm running Covenant of Protection for some armor and armor mitigation for dots, because I don't have the base type for the armor mitigation from dots and stuff like that. Eventually, you want the better base type than this instead of this base type eventually. I just don't have it currently. And you can also go for the gloves as well with the armor dot if you feel like as though you don't need atrophies anymore. But yeah, let's talk about the gear that's important. So like I said, most important one right now is Devotion. You want to slam a Devotion. You want Devotion, and then once you get that Devotion, you want to use all runes of Ascendance on Devotion. Then you're going to use rank here. You're going to go to the Weaver tree, and you're going to imprint a Devotion here, and I think here. And you want as many Devotions as possible. Trust me, you want this until you get like a 2LP one. And then once you get a 2LP one with the modifiers that you want, then you could stop dropping them. But specifically, you want that. Okay. The next unique, Atrophies. Atrophy is just a bunch of extra free pen. This one's optional, but you can get it from Black Sun. You can farm a bunch of Black Suns to get a 3LP one. Cool. Aberos Command. Aberos Command feels very good to use once you get out of the stage where you use a wand, a staff, and stuff like that. So this feels really good. It has really good percent damage. What you do is you just farm Follow the Outcasts for like an hour or two, like a few hours, and then take every single Aberos command you have and chuck it into the Nemesis, and then keep killing him. Keep killing him on chain. Use your Glyphs of Envy. If you have extra Glyphs of Envy, use them. Kill the boss more times. Try to get your 2LP Aberos command. If it bricks, get a new one, pretty much. Then Bulwark of the Last Abyss, where I'm getting it currently, you get it from Fall of the Empire. You get it from this boss. Farm this boss a bunch, get 1LP Bulwarks, slap T7 block chance on it, call it a day. You could eventually go and refarm it for a 2LP Bulwark, but I just didn't feel like that was worth my time right now. Definitely do that eventually. Numbras. So to get Numbras, there is a Woven Echo currently. I believe there's a Woven Echo that has arena champions on it. I'm trying to find it here. Champions Coliseum, a free-for-all between champions of the arena. These can drop inside that, these Numbras. So you take one of these, okay, and you go to the Weaver tree, and you imprint one here, and then you imprint beacons here. I'll leave a link down below of how I do my Weaver tree, but pretty much you're just going to want to imprint one of them on your tree, and then you're just going to keep farming and keep farming. And then, of course, take the ones that don't get LP and throw them in the LP Elizer, the Nemesis as well. So that's where you get those. Atera's Path, you'll just drop LP boots. Even if it's 1 LP boot, you just use it, slap T7 movement speed on it. If you don't have T7 movement speed boots, just use like Runes of Havoc or Runes of Redemption to get it. Pretty much just get as much movement speed as possible. Then the relic here, Uslanni Sphere. This is just a world drop. You could probably just kind of like rune. You can rune of Ascendance into these. I have a lot of them, I think. Yeah, 65. Just Rune of Ascendance into these after you get done with Devotion. And then, of course, throw them all into the Nemesis. And then you'll eventually get a 3LP one. And that's pretty much it for uniques. Now, the rest of the gear here, just mana, HP on a decent base. Augury plate here, HP, mana. Pretty simple, right? Ellie dot, lightning damage, HP, probably on a better base, on the armor base, but if you want movement speed, probably Divine Girdle. And then for the rest of the modifiers, mana and crit multi is very good on Devotion. You want as much crit multi and mana as possible. On the Aberos command, eventually you want a double prefix. You want percent damage on the prefix. You actually don't want Lightning Pen, but Lightning Pen is okay. It's like acceptable, right? Bulwark here, just like block chance. You just want T7 block chance on this thing. Then Numbras, like Ellie dot, like resistance that you need, HP, stuff like that. Stuff you'd normally put on rings, right? Same thing on the other one. And you want well-rolled ones. They roll very large roll ranges. You want rolled ones. If they min roll below 20, just dump them. Just drop them on the ground. It's not worth your time. Or you can also use them to put in the Farsight Turtle. That works too, obviously. Then, of course, atrophy here, HP, dot damage, mana. Those are the main things. And then boots, like I said, movement speed, HP. Then here, you can get levels to Smite, Ellie dot, crit multi, damage over time. I had to put my frailty here because I don't have frailty anywhere else. So definitely try to get frailty on here, and then HP. Or you can get frailty on idols. You can get frailty on idols. And if you did end up getting a frailty chance on idols, you can actually dump that and get HP there instead, which would be preferable. Cool. Then for idols, I went for HP healing effectiveness idols with the resistance that I need. HP healing effectiveness, right? That's what you want eventually. You want as much healing effectiveness as possible so that you can use your healing hands and smite to face tank. Then also as well, damage with smite and block effectiveness idols. And eventually you want the crit multi woven ethics. And that's pretty much it for the gear. That's pretty much it for the character. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else. Bye.